This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Empty Chair. To me, kind of a special edition. We got a couple of old friends back. They've both been on the show in the past, but it's kind of special what they do. Before I introduce them, I just want to let you know that you'll see banners of all of our sponsors, and they're the ones who not only pay for this show, but the money we get from them provides scholarships to get people into a good sober living home. We've done quite a few. We've had some really great success. So any of you are out there that you want to help us out, you want to become a sponsor, get some pretty cheap advertising, and you just might save a life. That being said, a few years back, quite a few years back now, I had Doug do one of the original Empty Chair shows back in Methuen when we did it on cable TV. He's done a couple episodes there, and he's done an episode here, and I had Aaron come in quite a while ago now, too, pre-COVID anyway, and we did an episode about their the group they have on Sunday called Mercy Street. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let these guys kind of give you a little history lesson, why it was started up, and how it's grown from there. So take it away, guys.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, well, that's a wrap. All right, Lou, ready to go. Go ahead, guys.
8 years ago, I lost my daughter, Courtney, to an overdose of heroin. And I was in a bad place. I was lost, not knowing what to do. And Aaron is the pastor of the First Baptist Church up in Plastow. And he's been like a father, brother, and son to me since that time. He's a great guy, and he has a way with people that are in trouble. And he set up this thing on Sunday night where we bring families in, and they come and sit and talk about people they've lost or trouble they're having with their kids that are using, or users themselves have come in. But it's been a great experience, and we were shut down during COVID, but we are starting to open back up again, and we would welcome somebody that is feeling lost or lonely, or feeling like they're the only one that's in this situation to come and see us and see what that's all about. Aaron?
Yeah, Doug's got his history right there. The key bit being that he's a father who's lost a daughter, and that he became a member of a very unfortunate club then. And it's a club that really didn't have any place to gather. It's particularly well known anyway, because it's hard to talk about, and people don't know how to talk about it or where to begin. It's not water cooler talk to say, hey, my child or my loved one is struggling with a substance use disorder. And unknowingly, what we really wanted to do was normalize some of that conversation for those who are in active addiction and for those who lost a loved one. And it's been quite a journey since. It's really been, what, eight years? 8 years that we've been doing this on. And we ran a few years just on Sunday nights. And then that got some energy and some effort into a weekly gathering that we did on Tuesday nights. The Sunday night was just monthly, and then a weekly thing. And that weekly thing ran for 4 years with us, right up until COVID and a little bit in between. And then we're just sort of reassessing what the needs are and where we might be able to help. Really knowing that addiction is a disease of isolation, that it separates the addict or the persons with the substance use disorder, from themselves, from their family members, from their friends, from their coworkers, and really it does that to families too, because families start to isolate a bit more because they can't do the normal things that they're used to doing with their schedules and their routines, and the conversations, and a lot of the joy is tapped. And when a loved one is suffering with addiction, the symptoms are different than any other illness. With a cancer illness, then your symptoms might be lethargy or a bad appetite or a weakness, and the symptoms of a person with a substance use disorder a lot of times are going to be lying and cheating and stealing and crossing their moral boundaries of what they would usually do without that. And that's hard for families to talk about. And we've tried to create a place where that's normal to talk about some, and we've walked through some real great triumphs with people and people in recovery, and we've walked through some really sad times too. Lost a lot of friends over 8 years to this.
Well, I'm gonna tell you one of the things that inspired me about when I first started going to those meetings. That yeah, for the most part, you kind of brought a lot of people who had lost a loved one together. And folks, whether you've lost someone or you're dealing with someone who has an addiction, don't try to do it by yourself. I mean, it's just too hard. And what I kind of liked about the Sunday meeting, besides the potluck you had after, what I liked about them was it wasn't all gloom and doom. Every now and then you'd play one of your crazy games.
Yeah.
And, no matter how bad you feel, at least once during the night, either during the meeting or the aftermath, you're going to smile. You're going to smile because you lost someone. These people can help you show that even with all the pain, you still have a life, and you have people that can relate to what you're going through. And I think that's been very helpful to a lot of people I've talked to.
Definitely. I think when we first started this, someone who had lost a child would come in, and they would be so visibly broken. They would sit in the pew and cry.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 or 3 months later, they're welcoming the new people that are coming in. Exactly. And they're beginning the healing process, and breaking down that stigma that I don't know, it sort of grows on you when you have a kid that's using. You don't want to talk about any to your friends about it. Yeah. You don't want anybody to find out about it. So you start locking the doors, and then after you lose the child, your friends don't want to talk to you because they don't know what to say.
Exactly.
So you end up all alone in the end, and I think it's, I always tell people, I would love to see any pictures you have of my child that I don't have. I would love to talk about my child. She had a difficult time for a while, but I mean, she was a superstar. She was a great kid, a smart kid, a funny kid. And that's how I would like her to be remembered. And I think families need to know that, because I own a flower shop and I deal with a lot of people that have, there's always the anniversary day flowers after you've lost a kid, Gee, it just, you need to celebrate their life instead of continuing to mourn forever. It's just, it's so bad for you, as a person to go through that.
Yeah, it truly is. And, you folks that are out there listening, just so you know, this is a live show. If you want to call in, find out something about Mercy Street or anything pertaining to substance abuse, the number's here. And if you feel a little funny about calling in, when you see the circle of hope banner come up, my number's there, and I'm open 24/7. But so why don't we talk a little bit about bringing Mercy Street back? Now it's still going to be like once a month.
Yeah, ideally around the first Sunday of the month. Calendar is what it is sometimes. Like January 1st. That's probably not going to be a prime time for us. But to come back in that monthly format, which is a bit of food and a bit of conversation, and ideally, I try to shape it like a funnel where there's something that we can all relate to, and that narrows down a little bit more specifically to the individual and their story. And of course, everybody's got unique stories, and that to love a person is to love a process, and to love a person with a substance use disorder, it's a really complex process. We're talking about families and a family disease or family disorder, and I liken it to a shrapnel wound where I think it was a German general, shrapnel, who created this weapon, and I think it was the First World War, that it wouldn't necessarily kill the soldiers that it was designed to detonate near, but it would wound them, and they would get sick, and their fellow soldiers would have to come along and attend to them, which would take out a whole troop.
Sure.
Instead of just one particular person. And when there's a person with a substance use disorder in a family or in any social situation, they kind of go off like that shrapnel bomb, and it hurts people, and they get sick with other things, and don't always know how to talk about it, or to say, me too, I thought I was the only one.
Right.
To compare some notes. And of course there's lots of paths into addiction. There's lots of pathways out of addiction too. And we wouldn't prescribe any one certain thing by any means. I can barely run my own life. I'm not going to suggest to somebody else how to run theirs, but that just to find some connection is really valuable for people.
Well, I mean, I think you'd both agree that it's not something someone should try to handle on their own without some help. Support.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No. Either for the person with the substance use disorder or the family members or friends who are affected. Yeah. It's got to be a community.
It's a family disease.
It truly, without a doubt. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. And even after you've lost a loved one, the family still suffers from that disease.
Oh, more so.
So I think there needs to be some tending done by community. I use that word, in a general sense, but by all of your friends and loved ones. Go visit them, go out to dinner with them, have a good time, listen to some music, have a couple beers.
Well, I mean, of course, I've known you for quite a while now. And Doug, the Zanfagna family, and the Middlemiss family, and so many others that I've come to know over the years, I've seen the way you handle it. And of course, you're heartbroken, they all are. But they find something to, I don't know, fighting back makes you, kind of gives you a little bit of oomph in it or whatever. But I know the likes of you.
They're dying for no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is a curable, it's a treatable disease.
Treatable, exactly.
It's a disease. And if it's addressed properly, the earlier the better.
Yeah.
Let's have a parent come forward and come to Mercy Street and let's talk about the problem they're having with their kids.
Oh, I agree.
And let's not sweep it under the rug or keep it such a private thing.
And you're right. And believe me, we've made huge gains in breaking the stigma since my daughter was using 20 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But even at that now, you still have a lot of people who, they have the shame and embarrassment and so forth like that. I guess some, it, and I think you're right in trying to get parents, to me, parents are public enemy number one, because they don't think, they're not educated enough to realize that it can happen to any kid.
That's right. We've been trying for 8 years to get them to be our audience.
Yeah.
And instead, the audience we have is the people that are in trouble.
Exactly.
We can't get into the schools. We can't, people won't come to an event. I mean, how many events have we had where there's more of us having the event than there are attending the event?
And you're right. It's so difficult. I mean, I know we've all spoken at forums. We've talked to countless politicians, and they all very concerned, and we got to do this. And let's face it, who can get a crowd together better than politicians?
Yeah.
But the trouble is, after you have that one talk with them, then it's on to the next thing. And they could be such a huge help in just getting, I know I've spoken before, Methuen Council, although I did have...
It's not going to be the politicians, though. To me, I think we've, in 8 years anyway, we've had countless politicians through, some with some good progress, and others with just kind of an appearance, national media with an appearance.
Yeah.
And then it's,
I agree, 100%.
And then it's done. But yet, the problem is lurking, potentially in any house, and literally in every community. But I was one of those people that was really oblivious and very naive. Years ago, working in a different church in a different community, there was a young woman who died of heroin or fentanyl overdose. And I asked the question, why would anyone do heroin? But I didn't care. Sadly, I didn't care to know the answer. What I was doing internally was dismissing why anyone was doing that, why this poor girl's life was the way it was. I was dismissing it so that I could get away from it. But when I started recognizing a pattern of doing more and more funerals for the same reason and affecting people that I knew Doug's daughter Courtney a bit, then I had to actually find some care and empathy to say, okay, well, why is this a thing for people? And there's a reason that people use drugs, and it's not up to me or anybody else to say you shouldn't do that because of the pain. It's how do we as individuals and how do we as a culture push through suffering? And for some people, their suffering is so great that the drugs are the best way out for them to manage, unfortunately. And to think of how complex and pain people's lives are to that point. And there's greed is the big driver of addiction, right? It was the greed of the pharmaceutical companies, and while that's maybe subsiding now, it's the greed of the dealers still.
Sure.
That's driving, and it's the greed that's willing to capitalize on people's pain, which is really disgusting. That people are suffering so much so they can push them and not care. I don't think that America's had a really great response to drugs. There's probably many other things that we could be willing to do. That we need to encourage the politicians to do differently. But it's not a popular thing to do.
No.
And it's frightening. But like Phil, for your good work of reducing the stigma for people with an addiction and for the family members, it's so great to be able to talk about it a little more comfortably with people
I agree.
now. It might not be water cooler talk, but it's a step away from the water cooler talk, at least.
And when I say politicians, outside of Senator Diana DeZoglio, soon to be state rep, state auditor.
Is she a sponsor?
She is the only one that really, didn't just make a speech and rah, rah, rah. I mean, she did things. She began MVP ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
And she, she had a passion. And that's what lacks a lot. All I'm trying to do is even get the local politicians. I'll tell you one thing. They don't have no trouble getting a bunch of people together for a fundraiser.
Yeah.
But try to get them to have a get together for something.
Yeah, I think we're probably a little different, maybe a little more fortunate across the border in New Hampshire. That in particular, Doug's got a compelling story. He and his wife and family, they have a compelling story, and they were willing to put their story out there. They were willing to air their pain and their suffering and their grief publicly. And because of that, there's a lot of people who have come to receive help because they were willing to talk about it. And with the First in the Nation primary, that's a popular, and especially in 2016, that was a popular time for this conversation to be had. And other things have happened, and there's hotter or sexier issues probably to talk about, and yet the epidemic remains. The numbers still across the nation of the daily deaths they still keep climbing. People are still suffering with that, and I'm more convinced that it's conversation and community connection more than politicians that are going to help us.
No, and I agree. Is like I said, with me, number one, there's a lot of money out there. It's just for the most part not spent properly. Well,
I think if we were to address the mental health needs of kids in the first, second, third grade, this is when this all starts. I remember Courtney was a happy kid in first and second grade. She loved school. She was just happy. She was a little chubby. When we moved to Newton, she was the fat kid when she started school. So she's a new kid. She's a fat kid, and that's how they treated her. And she began to isolate right then in the third grade. And I would go to her school and see her sitting alone outside at recess. I met with her teachers about it, and I saw that there was an issue. And my wife and I tried to address it, tried to do things about it, but it's like they're not paying attention. They're not putting their minds to grow the children properly. They're the demand to educate and get grades and that's really important. But we've got to grow these people correctly so that they have some kind of a life.
And it's funny you brought that up, because that's almost identical with my daughter. She went through 8 years of parochial school. Then she wanted to go to a trade school, Greater Lawrence Tech. And she too was kind of overweight and, didn't have a whole lot of, courage about anything. And yeah, they made fun of her.
Yeah.
But then she found a group that would accept her.
Yeah.
And,
well, I think the overwhelming thing you get from a response, if you ask someone, why do you use drugs? It's because I want to feel normal.
yeah,
They use drugs to feel like they belong, like
Yep.
they fit,
sure.
And what a terrible thing,
Yeah.
to feel like you don't belong, like you don't fit into a room, and it's, and Aaron and I, now we see we can look at a bunch of people and we can see, just look at, you can tell who they are.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
And if we can see, shouldn't we be addressing that issue? Shouldn't we spend some money on that?
Yeah. Well, I know my last show, which would have been 2 months ago, I think, I have this thing that I do when I look at the obituaries. Whenever I see somebody put cause of death, I reach out to that person, because I want them to know.
The unexpected ones.
No, the ones who said.
Oh, said it.
The ones who say so-and-so died from an accidental overdose.
Mhm.
And whenever I see people put that in the paper, I just say, there's a very courageous person.
Mhm.
Huh.
And they get it.
Mhm.
And anyway, a couple of months ago, this woman, Karen, who lost her beautiful daughter, Emma, at the ripe old age of 24,
Mhm.
and she did put it in the paper, and I reached out to her. We went back and forth, and she had a celebration of life 2 weeks after she died, which would have been her 25th birthday. And she offered to come in and do the show here a month and a half after she lost her daughter. And I can only, the impact it has on so many people. And it truly does.
For Doug, at his daughter's funeral, in preparation for it, I asked them if they wanted to speak, and they said no, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the heat of the moment, Doug said, yeah, I want to speak. And he got up and spoke, and he shared with Courtney's friends. It was from the heart. It was honest. It was loving. But that was about the time that I think the spark really lit for Doug. I'm going to speak for you. I'm guessing that grief energy that you had, you decided to use that for something good rather than just burn and consume you.
Yeah.
And you've been nonstop. And I know it's been exhausting. It's exhausting for parents who are articulate. I say unarticulately. I think unfortunately for Doug, sometimes he's been a poster child for state events or for other rallies, and it's got to be exhausting to keep sharing the same story. Yeah. You're good with it. It's emotional. It's real. But it's also tiring. It's like, well, okay, what's the next step then for us? So how do we keep moving forward? Because I think when Courtney passed, it was like around the low teens for me. In 9.5 years now at this one church in Plastow, now it's been 70 funerals that I've officiated for people with a substance use disorder, and that's not 70 families, because some of those families have lost multiple people.
It's amazing, but that's not uncommon,
right? And everybody's unique. Every story is special and precious, and yet there's these glaring similarities between a lot of people, and it's how do we help people suffer better, because everybody suffers, and for some it's just so consuming then.
Well, and owning a flower shop, and being known as an advocate, I often have people come into the flower shop under the guise of buying flowers and end up spending an hour talking with them about the problem that their kids are having. Sure. And I welcome that. And my daughter does too, but it's like, do they think that we don't know what's going on? I mean, we're glad, but they could just come in and talk about it. Instead, it's, they kind of beat around the bush for a little bit, and then they'll say they heard about Courtney, and then they'll begin their story, and it's like it's okay to come right out and talk about it with people, and I think community is the answer. The love of our fellow man is what's going to get us
Well,
through.
to me, Mercy Street should be a blueprint for many, many communities.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're
going to take 2 minutes. Do our commercial breaks here. We have a couple of commercials, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. So don't go nowhere. Remember, the show's live. Karen, I see you out there. Give us a call if you want. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Haven of Hope is a faith-based 12-step recovery home for women seeking a loving and structured lifestyle to help them persevere over addiction. Our sober living house offers women an opportunity to gain life skills, coping mechanisms, and personal growth so they may return to their home or working field as productive members of society. Haven of Hope's approach is based on fostering a structured, faith-based life with a core component being the 12 steps from the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, for with God, all things are possible. Contact Haven of Hope at havenofhopemethuen.org or call 978-258-3982. That's 978-258-3982, or visit us at 82 Union Street in Methuen.
Hi there. My name's Phil Lahey, and I do the Empty Chair show here. And as much as Fran and I have enjoyed doing this show, our real passion is with where it all began, the Circle of Hope, my support group for the families of addicts. I learned a long time ago that dealing with an active addict is just too difficult. So we invite you to join our group, the Circle of Hope. Give me a call, 978-886-2949, and you'll see our banner on the show anyway. And give me a call, find out what it's all about. If you don't think you're ready to sit into a group, Fran and I always invite people over to the house, and we sit down, have a one-on-one, and we talk about a plan you'll have to set up, how to deal with someone in active addiction, or just give you a chance to vent. So, if you or someone you know has dealing with someone in active addiction, reach out, give a call, take the first step. I promise you that it won't make it easier, but once you understand what it's all about, you'll be able to deal with it a little bit better. So again, 978-886-2949. Just ask for Phil. I'm always available 24/7. Thanks, and we'll see you on the Empty Chair. Bye-bye. Okay, we are back. So we kind of rehashed a little bit of history. Doug gave us a few memories about his wonderful daughter. But what I'm kind of hoping now is to develop some interest in Mercy Street, that you might just give it a shot. So I'm going to let Aaron and Doug talk a little bit about, what they will provide at a Mercy Street meeting. So take it away, kid.
Yeah, right on. Kid, thanks. Thanks, Pops.
Everything's kid.
Thanks, Grumpy.
I even call Luke kid.
I can read your sweatshirt. That's why I'm keeping my distance from you, Phil.
Spills 100.
I think a Sunday night Mercy Street meeting, which is still monthly right now, as we're kind of getting our legs back underneath this, is it's not too dissimilar from other meetings in that we want to offer a little experience, strength, and hope. We know those words well.
Yep.
A little commiseration, a little understanding, a little something that's going to let the steam off too, that lets people relax. Again, kind of that funnel coming in where everything is very similar, and then it's kind of trailing down just to the individual of why they're there. And sometimes that happens with a selected speaker. Sometimes it happens with a story. Sometimes it happens with some conversation that's just sitting around the table that somebody decided to sit next to. I think it's a place to belong for people who don't really know where to turn to.
Yeah.
Now, when we were running weekly before COVID, we had a lot of good energy and a lot of people in and out, and
Absolutely.
and you know, you find that people start helping people. This takes literally no financial resource for us to do. We have the space. The church has the space. We're happy to use it. You know, a little heat and a little electricity. But for people to be able to come together and understand a little bit more about each other's stories. So, you know, but I know sometimes it's really hard for people to go to a thing. So when COVID hit, we adapted into Zoom like everybody else for a little while, and then we went outdoors. We had some good parking lot meetings and some good grass meetings. Karen, you were there for some of them. I see you watching, and that's good. But sometimes it's, you know, there's people out there who certainly are not they're not big group people, right? And I think a logical step for me anyway, and before being a pastor, I was a social worker, and I did home-based family work around the North Shore. And, you know, you really learn a lot being in somebody's home, and a lot of times people are more comfortable in their home. So I'm you know, working on a home resource team that, you know, if a family says, hey, we got a crisis, there's something we don't understand about a loved one that's going on here, you know, can we send 2 or 3 people to partner with them for a short season of time to present some realities of addiction? You know, because a lot of times somebody will come in and we'll hear a very similar story of, well, I don't think they're that bad, or it's not that way yet.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. Yeah.
And it's always worse than the initial disclosure. It's always worse than that. And we know that from experience. But for a fresh family sitting there who are just slow to discover this, you know, they need as much peace and a resiliency as they can possibly get. So, you know, I think a logical step would be for us to maybe start training some teams that could kind of get deployed out with some families for a little while, so that they can find some help with knowing what might come next.
Like a sponsor.
Sure, like a family sponsor.
Which would be,
when we started talking about this 8 years ago, it was so hard to know who the players were within the treatment industry, I'll say, and who was friend, who was not as friendly. And of course, within treatment facilities, the workers, they tend to shift a lot. I mean, I wonder if like 18 months is like the shelf life of somebody at a facility. So it's hard to kind of maintain those connections. I feel like because of COVID, we've lost some of those, whereas before we had some of those agencies who were referring families to us. We'd like to get back to that, but it's a regular basis that people will contact me and say, what do I do? I think my child is this or that. And I think it's time to really kind of dispatch into people's homes then, but with some trained supportive people, you know, somebody, a father, a mother who's been there, a sibling as well. That's a whole different, you know, as that shrapnel wound expands out, that seems like a logical place. And I'm wondering if our monthly gatherings, we might be able to establish some of those teams to be able to dispatch a bit.
Sure. And, you know, and you're right, because some of the things you say, like we do a weekly support.
Sure.
All right. And you're right, you'll have people come in and they'll pretty much say, yeah, well, my kid ain't that bad. And he admit to me that he's only doing this. Trying to get them to realize he's only admitting partially what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because none of them tell the truth.
And fentanyl's in everything now.
Just about, it is.
So many times we hear from, especially in those weekly meetings, we would hear from somebody who was in recovery, maybe even very short-term recovery. Sure. Somebody would come in and they would describe their own pattern of drug use. That they said they said, okay, I'll do that drug, but I won't do this drug.
Exactly.
And then, okay, well, in time I will do this drug, but I won't use it that way. Okay, and then I end up using it that way. You know, this regression of behavior that way. But a lot of times dads on the other side of that, they would come in, they've got a loved one who's affected by addiction in some way. And what the dads a lot of times wanted to do, and I don't mean to, no, I'll just say it. A lot of times the dads would want to go back in time, figure out when their child started using, perform a surgery around it, cauterize the wound, and then be done with it. And of course, addiction doesn't work that way.
The dads are the worst, by the way.
Well,
they are truly the worst.
They just want to make it better right away. And addiction doesn't work that way.
It does not.
But on the flip side of that, though, so many times I've run a few grief groups, separately as a different part of Mercy Street thing, and the overarching theme for those parents who've lost a child in particular is that they no longer fear death. They say, they say death used to be the worst thing imaginable to me, and it isn't anymore, because they've lived through this pain of losing a child, and that's the worst thing that they can imagine. And it's not that they're suicidal, but they just say, if death happens, it would be okay, because that grief is very, very strong for me.
I think it's a real faith booster too, because having lost a child, I have to believe I'll see her again. And I hadn't gone to church in 40 years till this kid dragged me in there. He put me in the front row and said, "You sit right here."
That's not true. You sat there willingly, and you still do. Now, I'm like Phil. You're a back row kind of guy.
Yeah. The more you sit here, the younger you're getting. You notice
absolutely.
that? That's incredible.
That's right. You got to go listen to my Lawrence
You
Welk on the way home.
Yeah. No, and and in all honesty, I've tried to put myself in your place. If one of the times my daughter OD'd, I would have lost her. And I would like to think that I would handle like you, but you want to know the truth? I think I would have curled up in a ball and been useless.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And I tried.
And I can't fault them. That's
no. And I always say, well, I'd like to, fight back, and so. But in all honesty, I don't know. I just don't think I would have, if it wasn't for my wife Fran, because dads fix things, or they don't think they're as bad as what they are, and so forth. If it wasn't for Fran, my daughter probably would have died, because she kind of said, it's either her or me. You've got to make a choice.
Well, I was really lucky because Senator Ayotte from New Hampshire reached out to me, and she just put me in front of people to testify before the House and Senate and the White House.
Yeah.
And, it's just, I only prayed for one thing after I lost my daughter, and that was to have doors open for me so I could try to help other people. Yeah. And boy, the doors have opened.
They truly have.
But Doug's been faithful to take those opportunities, and it's exhausting for him, I'm sure. But he's been faithful to do that. Too, at the same time, like after Senator Ayotte lost her Senate seat to Maggie Hassan on her own, Senator Hassan called, right, and said, "Hey, can I come?" And she knew that Senator Ayotte had been particularly active with you and some of the Mercy Street stuff. And to her credit, Senator Hassan came and said, "Hey, can I come see this and be a part of it?" And was great. No fanfare, no photographers. She just wanted to be there. I was impressed by that.
Senator Shaheen also called and asked my wife and I out to dinner so we could tell her what addiction was like, boots on the ground. Because I think they have a different perspective looking down in it.
Oh, I agree.
And I think that it's important to speak with the people on the ground, that are doing the work.
When you come up with what we've been doing all these years, it's being exhausting. And it truly is. My wife started to know because I was spending so many hours a day either on the phone or with people at meetings and testifying. And she finally got to the point and says, and thank God for Cole Welch. She kind of took the reins. I get to help her when she needs me.
She's got some energy, huh?
Huh?
She's got some energy, huh?
Oh, my God, yeah. Energy and passion.
Yeah, right on.
And she's taken MVP ASAP to a new level. And not easy to do when she was fighting through COVID for a couple of years. And I know we all felt that. I mean, we're just now starting to try to get back, try to get live, try to get people interested. Because let's face it, we were the forgotten epidemic.
That's another thing about working with politicians is every time there's an election, you got to start all over again.
Oh, I know.
I know. And that's so much work where the community is always there. So if we could get more response from the communities, from our police and fire, and those kind of people.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've said at almost every funeral that I've done is I talk about this cycle, and it's not original to me. It's the Apostle Paul writing to the early Roman Church. He says that suffering leads to perseverance, and perseverance leads to character, and character leads to hope, and hope doesn't disappoint us. And I think a freshly grieving person, or a person who is wounded and concerned about a loved one, who they are so desperate for them to survive this illness, they're suffering, and they're suffering strong. And it's how do we help people into that next season of perseverance? And it's usually just sitting down with them and being present with them.
Right.
And there's no magic date on a calendar to circle, say, okay, well, you lost your child on this date, so by this date you should be better.
Exactly.
It's enduring seasons like that. And that grief is so sneaky. It just creeps up on people again and again.
Sure.
And it can consume people, and we've seen it consume people.
Oh, absolutely.
We've been a part of some people.
Yeah.
I've had moms in my office before who've said, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to live anymore. And I can understand that. It breaks my heart, and I can't advise them what to do with that, but what I can tell them the truth, and that is that I'd be sorry if they did that. I would understand it, but I'd be sorry if they did that, because then addiction has taken another life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of their wound, their significant loss. Parents, good parents, they want to do everything they can to protect their kids. And it's not just a parent-child relationship, right? I mean, there's kids who are concerned about their parents, age. The addiction can creep in anywhere. But to help people through that process, just to sit with them, and not a lot of advice, not a lot of suggestion, but to endure with them what they're enduring, and be a friend.
Knock that stigma down.
Yeah.
Knock it down. Make it so you can talk about it, instead of eating it.
If Phil, you got a broken leg, then you'd be on crutches or a cast or in a wheelchair or something, and then people would say, "Hey, what happened?" You'd be like, "I blew up my ACL." Whatever it was. But people instantly have compassion for that.
Yep.
When people have a mental health issue or an addiction, substance use issue, it's so much harder to see in a person. Their behavior gets erratic. They aren't consistent in their person. That grandma's brooch and rings go missing. All these symptoms going on there, and it's harder to have that compassion for people when those. When this person with a substance use disorder is crossing their own moral boundaries, it's hard to continually have that compassion. And parents then are stuck because they want to keep their child alive, and yet they've got to keep these firm boundaries too. So what do we do? Yeah.
And I know all of us know when we're talking to someone for the first time, we know where they are. When they first, the kid, I was missing $20 last night. Like, so you're right at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
$30 for another tire patch.
Yeah, I got gas for my daughter 15 times last week.
Well, and I think that's why it's so rewarding when we get new people into our support group, and they'll start talking, and they'll start saying what their kids are telling. Yeah. And what's good is you want to believe your kid.
Yeah.
You want to believe.
Oh, yeah.
You mean she's lying?
Yeah. and that, the other people in the group, because obviously if you're an outsider, if you're not personally involved, you can see, plus if you've been through it too.
Yeah.
But it's we've seen so many people over the years, and it's just such an eye-opening experience. And I've said this before, those members that we have, when they came in, their kids were in active addiction, didn't want their parents coming to our meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They used to call us.
They're learning boundaries.
They used to call us that effing group.
Yeah.
But we were very proud of that name.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of families that came to Mercy Street that are so much better.
Yes.
Are so much better, and have been able to resume a normal life once you learn how to manage and control your grief, and use it as a support thing for you.
And to accept what they can control and what they can't control.
Yeah.
And realize it's not their fault.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part.
But there's nothing like that great pairing of a person with a substance use disorder and a codependent person who loves them. Those two personalities are just made for each other to keep feeding into that, and it's such a struggle. And I see Karen mentioning mental health there again, and we see that so many times, right? That it's a chicken or egg thing. Is it the person's mental health that's driving this, or is it their substance use that's driving this? And do they try to self-medicate? Of course, who wouldn't with those challenges that go on? But how to break through all that cloud and all that fog for people, and with the isolation of COVID. we know a lot of people who were in long-term recovery and successful, who were treatment professionals who went back out. I think I attribute it largely to the isolation of it all. And it's those stories are they're sad and they're tragic, and yet everybody's a work in progress that way. And if somebody's an hour sober or 20 years and 2 hours sober, great, that they can maintain it. Now, I don't know how you feel or MVP ASAP feels, but I've changed 100% from not knowing much about addiction to knowing a lot about addiction, but also to being aware of harm reduction services and other things that will help people be connected and safe until they're ready to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's touchier for some people, and I think it's really hard for the public to understand of how that might be a tool. But for the addict, their connection is their dealer. And if they had a connection instead that was safe and caring, that it might not be the first time they exchange the needle or that they use safely in front of but maybe the 100th time that they've established that connection, it's always going to be safer than the dealer. And I know it's messy for people, but the war on drugs, as America knows it, is failing miserably, and it's not compassionate at all for the reasons that people are using drugs.
Well, what you just said, that will be a discussion for another day. But the compassion you're talking about is true, because we all see the panhandlers on the corner,
Sure,
right? And you see people drive by and maybe shake their head and so forth like that. But you'll see those same people, if they drive by and they see a dog loose on the street,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to go try to save that dog. They're going to
Yep.
try to protect. We will do more for a stray dog than we will for somebody who is in active addiction.
Yeah.
And, well, we got some alone.
Yes, we do. Cole.
What does she want? She checking up on me?
Yes.
Hey, girl.
Hey guys, you guys are doing an awesome show
Can you
tonight.
hear?
Thank you so much. Dougie, I love your daughter. Her smile lit up the room before she even entered. And Aaron, I appreciate all that you do in the community. And I just wanted to call in tonight. And of course, Phil, as always, you are the best, the bomb. So thank you very much. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to everyone, and also remind everyone we have a special guest coming in next Thursday. So I will be hosting the show with Denise Sullivan. She is flying in from Hawaii. Wow. She is a mentor. She is everything I aspire to be when I grow up. So I just wanted to remind everyone. And you folks keep talking about Mercy Street, but you're not saying what Sunday and where the location is. So just make sure you start marketing that during the show so people can hear what church, what time, and address. So I can also put it into the comments so that people who see this later will know where they can go. And with that, I just want to say I love you guys. God bless, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Okay, lady.
Thanks, Cole. Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks for slapping me on the hand. Okay.
Yeah, so to Cole's good encouragement there. In general, we're meeting the first Sunday of the month at 6:30 at the First Baptist Church in Plastow, New Hampshire. It's 122 Main Street. It's right in front of the Pollard Elementary School. Right. And it's no more than an hour and a half worth of conversation, right. and some fellowship. Yeah, that's right. And Cole mentioned next week's special guest, Denise Sullivan. Yeah. Denise is an all-star. She came into our Sunday night thing and really kicked off the Tuesday night thing with me, and so faithful, so knowledgeable. And then she had the audacity to move out of state to a tropical location and not bring us with her. Why aren't we doing this on site in location in Hawaii? That's really the question. Yeah. I'm sure the kind sponsors at R&R Welding and Fabrication would love to send this team out there.
Well, now that Cole brought it up, we know it's, for the most part, it's the first Sunday of the month and where it is. But how are you going to promote it now? How are people going to know about it? I mean, we'd be happy at MVP ESAP, obviously, to promote it all over the place. But what do you guys? Will you put it out on Facebook so we can share it?
Yeah, with full transparency, we're still trying to figure out what we are coming back after COVID, and who we can help. So we've just gathered a few times on that first Sunday of the month to chat a little bit and see what our next phase might look like, and not knowing that that meeting is open to anybody.
Right.
But when we find some other, Denise was she was the little engine that could with things, and then after she left, we had another great person who also ended up moving. But looking for those right partners to help shape and drive that, so that we can reach. We have a moderate Facebook presence. We really have no web presence. Right. A lot of what we've done has just been word of mouth, which is really all we've been able to maintain. Operating a church full time and other things as well. So
word of mouth really drove the thing.
If there's
it has, but you used to put it on Facebook.
Yeah,
I remember that. We got some of them.
Karen.
Hello.
Hi,
Who's this?
this is Karen Morton Clark.
Hi there.
Karen Morton Clark. Jeez.
a legend as
Hi.
well.
I can't tell if am I live right now? I can't tell.
Yes, you're live. Go ahead and sing.
Yep.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that I have personally attended Mercy Street in the past in support of other individuals. But this very year, I lost a loved one, Aaron Grady, and I also lost my own brother to an accidental fentanyl cocaine overdose. So now I'll be attending for a different kind of support. And I just want to say that I so love you guys and appreciate you guys. Doug Griffin knows I love his family. And I also want to say that Aaron and First Baptist Church is a recovery-friendly workplace. So you just let me know, and I will promote it to every single recovery-friendly workplace that we support and that is designated throughout the state, and particularly in your area. So.
Yeah, thank you, Karen.
Well,
Karen does good
That's
work.
pretty awesome of you.
Within that great state of New Hampshire that we're from, with those recovery-friendly workplaces, with resources and programs available to help employers know how to help employees struggling with substance use disorders.
Well, we only got a few minutes, so how about you both give a little closing, and then we'll have it a wrap.
Well, I would just like to say, Karen, I can't wait to see you at Mercy Street. That's awesome. But I think to our audience, come and visit us and see what it's like. We'd love to hear your story. You've heard our story, and we'd love to help you through your time. And if you're having a hard time, come and see us. Yeah,
and I'd probably just say that for family members who are struggling with watching someone suffer with a substance use disorder, you're not alone. And we know how complicated and messy life can be. There's still hope. If you're in that fresh season of suffering, we're happy to sit with you until you find that season of perseverance that might be around the corner. But indeed, keep talking. And there's both states here, both within the Merrimack Valley region. There's some great resources available here, and we're always happy to chat with you.
And I've been going to Mercer Street as often as I could since it started. I'm going to make you a promise. No matter what kind of condition you are when you go in there, I will promise you that when you leave, you're going to feel a little bit better. May not last a whole long time, but you'll feel better for a while, and that's the start of getting through your whole process. So that being said, I do want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and enjoy your family, because I've met a lot of people, Doug especially, who would give anything to just have them sit down for one more meal with them. So when you're enjoying your family, try to think of over 100,000 families over the past 12 months that are going to have an empty chair at their table. And maybe just kind of send a little prayer to them and thank God that you don't have an empty chair. All right. That being said, Cole will see you at the next one, and I'll come crawling around after that one. So until then, it's always a pleasure. We'll see you next time on the Empty Chair. Bye bye.